I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada, and I got the incredible name Asta Sakhi Dasi. And I'm going to give a tiny bit of my background with Srila Prabhupada so that you can understand how profound my love is for Srila Prabhupada, and how that love brought me to such a great sadhu, and he brought me to such a great sadhu as Narayan Maharaj. And you'll understand from my background how Gurudeva has actually changed my life in such a way that my Gurudeva, Srila Prabhupada, is totally accepting me as his disciple. So I come off a large family. I have brothers and sisters. There were 8 of us, and I'm the 3rd one down. And I had a tough life. I had to fight for everything. We were not very wealthy, and I knew that my education was important, and I totally felt that they were not my parents, that I was in the wrong family, but I did love them. And I worked very hard, and I got into Manchester University at 17. I'd taken all my exams early, and they'd accepted me. I was going to do mechanical engineering, and I was accepted on a course where they allowed me to work in their department as well as study. And I met the devotees in Manchester, and I was on my lunch break at university, and I met them, and I got the Krishna book, and I remember taking it home and telling my mum and dad, why you forced me to eat meat all these years, and I'm not supposed to eat it, and God is a person. Anyway, so I visited the Manchester temple, and I joined in 71 in Manchester, and I quickly became a good cook. I was trained, I became a good cook. I gave up all my studies, and I hadn't met Prabhupada, but I knew that this was the truth, and that whatever I didn't know or understand, I had the faith that it would be revealed to me. So I joined in Manchester, and it was at the end of 71, I met Srila Prabhupada in Berry Place, and he initiated me, and he gave me one instruction, the only instruction that he gave me. But I'm very lucky, because at initiation he didn't give many people any instructions. He just said to follow, the 4 principles and chant 16 rounds. But he said, I'm calling you Asta Sakhi. He said Asta means 8 and Sakhi means friend. He said, and Asta Sakhi is a gopi. And she's the dearmost gopi of the 8 Sakhis. She's their dearmost friend. He said, so I want you to become the dearmost friend of all the devotees. And I took that to my heart. And now I'm 70 years old, And I can actually say that I have sincerely followed that instruction my whole life. I have never tried to blame devotees for my sufferings. I have only ever tried to be their friend and to love them and encourage them. And I can stand here and look you in the eyes and say, I may have made many big mistakes in my Krishna consciousness, but I have sincerely followed loyally the instruction given to me by Srila Prabhupada. And many things happened in my Krishna consciousness growing up with Srila Prabhupada. I profoundly loved him, and the more I got to know of him, the greater my love became. And before I came to Bury Place, I went to Scotland, and I would go out with my friend Vrindavan B. Harini, and we would do magazines, Back to Godheads, because we had no books. We had no Bhagavad Gitas to sell on the streets, no little books. And we would take hundreds and hundreds of them, and it was the marathon. We were competing with the rest of the world, all these big devotees in America. And we would take all our magazines on a coach up in, we would catch the bus and hold up the whole bus while we loaded it up with all our magazine, and then we would take it in, we would walk in, running back to each other as we moved our books down, and we would find an Indian shop that would hold our magazines while we distributed them. And I hadn't, I'd met Srila Prabhupada, I had got initiated, but had I? Yes, I had, and Vrindavan had also got initiated. So we did this book marathon, and at the end of it, oh yes, in order to sell the books, we'd never known how to sell on the street. And I said to Vrindavan Biharini, well, why don't we just copy Srila Prabhupada's humbleness? So of course we weren't humble, but we took our books, and in the mood of how we felt, Srila Prabhupada was so humble for accepting us, and we were so grateful that we bowed down to everybody on the street. And they all took the magazine, and we actually became the world top distributors of the Back to Godhead at that Christmas marathon. And Srila Prabhupada was so happy that two little Brahmacharinis up in the cold of Scotland had sold that many, and he invited us down to London to take Gayatri Mantra, to take Diksha. We had not done the required time for that, but because we'd done such outstanding service, that's what we were told, it was outstanding, we got to go to London and get our Gayatri Mantra and become a full Diksha disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And I found Scotland too cold, and I wanted to go to America, to New Vrindavan, and I was going to work from my family home and go, but Tribhuvanatha, who was a great ISKCON devotee at the time, he got me to come to his place in Manchester again, and he said, you will have your own room, come and do the cooking for us. And Tribhuvanatha had a wonderful, charming personality. He was Irish, who never told you the full extent of everything. when I got there, my room was the kitchen. And my bed was a mattress behind the door of the kitchen. Oh, and there was no money for bhoga. I had to go out and do Sankirtan and collect it. And we had no books. I only had a leaflet to invite people to the Sunday feast. So I would have to go on the Sankirtan in the morning, and I would have to raise the money for the bhoga. But we were packed, and on a Sunday for our feasts, and it was really lovely. And then I got invited to come to London to take care of, to be the cook and to take care of Srimati Radharani. And Srila Prabhupada had set the deity worship up there, so I was taking care of my Srimati Radharani in London with Leela Shakti. And Srila Prabhupada gave me lots of instructions there. He would come and I would be doing arti, and we had the Vyasasan right next to the altar, and it was just wonderful to turn round and offer to him the arti. And I remember the devotees jumping up and down so badly on the floor that Krishna was bouncing, because it was very much connected, and the crown fell down. And I looked at Srila Prabhupada, what to do? You're not supposed to touch the deities in front of everybody else. And Srila Prabhupada was just looking at me, nodding. So I assumed it was to pull his crown up, so I had to do it in front of everybody. And when we paid obeisances, I was the person who put the flowers into Srimati Radhika's hand, and I had all blue tacked them, so there was no way they could come out. They shot out of the hand of Srimati Radharani, and they went directly to the picture of Srila Prabhupada. And I was, during the puja prayers, during the prayers, I could offer them to Srila Prabhupada, and he cried many tears. And in 1973, I was Lord Jagannath was in Berry Place, was above Radha and Krishna, maybe about 13 feet up, and I was Lord Jagannath's pujari and half of Subhadra, because we had to climb a ladder. And Leela Shakti was Balaram's and half of Subhadra. And one day it was 13 feet up. So I was cleaning Lord Jagannath, leaning over to do Subhadra, and Lord Jagannath was rocking. And I could feel that he could fall. And I grabbed his hands as he began to fall. And at that moment, all I wanted was to cushion him, to save him. Srila Prabhupada had moved my life in such a way that not only did I love him, but because of his love for Radha and Krishna and all the deities, made my love for them, without the understanding of tattva properly, love them. So that as Lord Jagannath was beginning to fall, I felt I was willing at that point to sacrifice my life to cushion his fall. And I fell down. The ladder went behind Radha and Krishna, and I fell flat to the ground on marble with this massive Lord Jagannath holding his hands to cushion his fall. And Leela Shakti and some of the devotees thought I had died. I had left my body. And I opened my eyes and I could see Lord Jagannath's face, and I was so happy. You were alive. not I'm alive. I said to Lord Jagannath, you're alive. And they took 3 devotees to lift him off me, and all he had was the tiniest little dint in his arm. and they wouldn't let me get up. And I said, but I don't have any pain. And I moved every part of my body. I got up and they were all spinning me round and checking me. I didn't even have a bruise on myself. So who had saved who? I didn't know the tattva of Radha Krishna, Lord Jagannath. All I knew was, because we worked so hard to make devotees, cook, dress the deities, go on Sankirtan, up and down Oxford Street chanting, being chased by the police. That was our day. And when I sat in class, I would nod off to sleep. So what sustained me was that love, that I knew I'm on the right path. I knew that I had to chant Hare Krishna, and I knew that if I love Srila Prabhupada and I love all the things he loved, I would be successful. And that intense and profound love is what sustained me. And many times we had ISKCON leaders doing all kinds of things, Hamsadutta deciding to take away all the money of the deities. And not only were we only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, we then had to go and get the money for the deities, and we went to beg on the tubes and things like that. And if I needed more devotees, I would stand outside the colleges and universities and bring them back to the temple. It was so easy. If ever I needed something, I would just say, oh, we need a couple of devotees more to help us. We were already 13 to a room. And I had, because I was a good cook, I was also asked to cook for the Beatles, who were recording just round the corner. So I got to know George very well, and John, and they loved our prasadam. Yeah. And this one time, George would come in the evening about 6, between 5, 6. He liked to sit there when it was empty and meditate and chant. And this one time he brought a girl, a young girl with a child, and he wanted her to stay with us. And I took him, I said, but George, you've got to see how we're living. And we had a room next to Srila Prabhupada's room on the landing, in a bathroom, Srila Prabhupada's room, and a little bedroom, like a box room. And there were 3 bunk beds going right up to the ceiling on either side. 2 of us slept on each of those bunk beds. One at either end. And we kept our stuff there in a little thing. And the other room upstairs was just as bad. And I showed him how we were living, and he put his hands to his head and went, oh, we have to get something bigger. And that's when he told Dhananjaya that he would go out, and he got Bhaktivedanta Manor. And that was in 73. So many things happened in 1973 with Srila Prabhupada. The devastation of being told we no longer would have financing for Radha and Krishna. We at that time we didn't write to Srila Prabhupada as much as we should have done. Leela Shakti sent a letter off to Srila Prabhupada, but in the meantime the deities would have nothing, so I had to go out and beg with a can for a starving little blue boy on the altar. And we got so much money that the outfit I made, Srila Prabhupada loved it so much, he put it on the cover of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the cover of Radha Londonishwara, full of jari, and we got it in Southall, and we made this incredible outfit, and that's because we got so much money from the public. And not only that, the deities were so wealthy, you know, and we were no longer in holy cotton saris. We all had silk saris to go on the altar with. And we decided, because the men had taken the money away, that the pujaris and the ladies would have the maha. So we also got quite fat. The deities had so much maha, so many flowers, so much, and the men were starving. And not only that, we could afford a car. A lovely car to go out and beg for Krishna. And I remember Hamsaduta coming in his old car that had black smoke coming out of it, coming in behind our lovely car, and we driving off. He was so upset that I had an arranged marriage and I went to Holland. I was sent to Holland. But Srila Prabhupada was very upset. He said at the time, if you do not serve Krishna first, there is no hope for you in your Krishna Bhakti. All money should be for him. So that was quite significant, and I went to Holland and I married Hare Krishna Das, my ex-husband, and we had not been in England. Hare Krishna Das had come to be the president of Berry Place. I was living at Bhaktivedanta Manor. I was about to have my second child, Gopi Manjari, and Srila Prabhupada left this world. Just before he left this world, he came to Bhaktivedanta Manor. He left Vrindavan very ill, and he came back to Bhaktivedanta Manor, and he called me upstairs, and he wanted to have facility to cook his own milk in his room. So I bought him a Bunsen burner with a pot so he could cook his own milk in his room. And he had left Vrindavan so quickly, no kirta. I had to help to make a kirta for him, and he told me at that time, please keep everything as it is, and look after Radha Gokulananda and Radha London Ishwara. We called them Radha and Krishna of London at the time, and it was unbelievable. The mood of Srila Prabhupada at this time was very different to any other time. His mood was one of great thank you for being my disciple. Thank you for your service. It was a mood I'd never seen before. And just to be in Srila Prabhupada's presence, you would cry. Why? He was making you feel great for coming. And he said it was because we'd helped him to serve his Guru's mission, Srila Bhaktivedanta. And it was just so absolutely amazing. The feelings at Srila Prabhupada, it was, it was not as teaching mood as a thank you mood for being my disciple, for helping me to serve my Gurudev and to make my life successful. It was very hard to accept, even today, that it breaks my heart as well. And it made my love for Srila Prabhupada even greater. Srila Prabhupada left this world, and there was an unbelievable shift in ISKCON with leaders and quarrels, and there, and who was right, who was wrong. I didn't know enough tattva to fully work things out. But I also had a family to look after. I had 2 young children. Unfortunately, my husband left me, where I was given no maintenance. But because I'd always been a Sankirtan person, Bhagavan, who took over England, told me that I should go out and I could always keep one day's Sankirtan money. And at the time we were trying to support they'd bought another facility, Crown Court, where the school was, and I had Sankirtan parties out. I had 3 travelling parties, and I taken the finance of those cars and vehicles through my own account. But I was able to keep one day's collection. So that was covering that debt. And then Bhagavan left England. He did what you call as blooped. And I'm left with a huge debt from hiring the cars and taking the Sankirtan through my own account. So as I had that instruction to keep one day's money, then I continued that. And unfortunately, the laws of the land had changed dramatically. And everything, if you did anything, especially through a charity, it had to go through that charity and then be given back to you. So due to one envious person, I got arrested. And they went through my bank accounts. And they realized I had too much money coming through. And if I had disclosed that my close connection with ISKCON, they could have lost their charity status. And I had done wrong anyway, because I needed to be more intelligent and be aware of how the law was changing in England. And not only that, I'd helped other people, which I didn't have that right to, other devotees and people who needed extra Lakshmi, that they could also keep a certain amount. They never got found out, but I took my offence. Anyway, I lost the court case and I got sentenced to 9 months in prison. And I accepted it because I know I'd done something wrong and whatever, and if I'd have opened it up about the charity status with ISKCON, they could have lost their ISKCON charity status, and Srila Prabhupada had worked too hard for it, and it was also my fault for not, for actually accepting. I should have been more proactive. You can't not. I mean, when we've been doing Sankirtan and we've been chased by the police, and some of the devotees were caught at those days, and they were locked up in Holloway over the weekend, and we had to get them out. They never could catch me because I was a very fast runner. I was a very fast runner, so they never caught me. So I went to prison, and I had to, this one weekend, I'd had a car crash in 87, and I went to prison in 94. In my car crash, I'd become extremely disabled. On paper, I'm not able to walk. I have a back that's so bad. I mean, the Lord and the Parampara and Srila Prabhupada have always looked after me. But on paper, I'm very bad. So I went to prison and I had to spend 2 nights in a hospital because I needed an extra, at the time, cast on my leg. And when I came back, I was in an open prison. Before I got to the open prison, I was in a closed prison in Holloway. And I remember after the first week, they were very kind to me to give me my own room so I could chant, you know. Anyway, and I remember chanting at the time and having lots of disturbed thoughts in my mind. And Srila Prabhupada, an aerial voice, spoke to me. I wasn't even asleep, and it was Srila Prabhupada. And he said to me, you must get past the 6th round. He said, get past the 6th round, no matter how hard it is. And then he told me the exact time, the exact date that I would be moved to a better place where I could cope with it. And 1 hour before that came about, I thought, oh, did I hear wrong? Did Srila Prabhupada tell me wrong? And then the hour before, the prison authorities came and said, we're moving you to an open prison. And there it's a lot better. And I was at this open prison. But I had to spend the 2 days in hospital with my foot. And when I came out, when I was at the open prison, I gave so much love to everybody there. I've never seen such collective suffering in one place with ladies. And a lot of ladies in there had taken the crime for their husbands, because the husbands would have got a lot longer. And they were separated from their children. And and I was separated. The amount of suffering was unbelievable. So I gave the ladies there a lot of love, and they would come and sit in my room and want to hear counselling. And I always gave it, you know, in a Krishna conscious way, without trying to throw it down their throats. And I remember going to hospital for these 2 days, and when I came out, the 2 prolific young girls had come in who were terrible thieves, and they got into my room and they'd stolen everything. My Bhagavad Gita, my pictures, my Krishna picture. And when the ladies of the prison heard about it, they were horrified and they went on strike. And this never happened in a prison before. They wouldn't move. There were hundreds of them sitting outside my room on the lawn. And the governor had to come to me and beg me to speak to them. They won't move. Can you get them to do something? Anyway, I had to go out and speak to them that, you know, that they must go back to the rooms, and they absolutely refused. We will only go back when we can find your Bible. We know how much you love that book and your pictures of your little girl. And they agreed with the officers to put on Wellingtons, and the whole prison, whole group of them, with the prison officers, scoured the whole prison, even the tip, the rubbish place, and it was there. In there, they went through everything. They found my Bhagavad Gita, and they found my pictures, and they came with it on their head, holding it on their head, all in file, back to me. And the governor said, we've never had this happen before. That they gave me the book. In fact, the governor said, we have to move you to the hospital wing. We can't have them. They're no longer listening to me. They're listening to you. So they moved me to the hospital wing because she was no longer in charge of those ladies. And then she called up the Home Office and said, you've got to take this lady out. We can't have her here. The prisoners won't listen to me. So I got sent home. They didn't want me there. But during that time, every Christian, Muslim, Jewish, anybody from other religions had their priests come on a Sunday to see them. And although the authorities in ISKCON had promised me somebody, they never sent anybody to me. I had to, the governor was very kind to give me my own place to chant in the morning, even though I shared a room with a lady there. I got to go out early in the morning to a little room where I could chant and everything like that. I got quite thin in there because it was hard to get the, you know, the vegetarian foods that I could eat. But so when I came out, I was actually very disturbed. Not my love for Prabhupada, that had grown even deeper, because it was Srila Prabhupada who came and told me how to chant. No matter how difficult it was with your mind, if I got past the 6th round, it would get easier. And believe me, it did. No matter how hard my mind was in the first 6th round, after the 6th round, I could chant like I did, yes? And that made me soften my heart and become even more loving to the people around me. And they definitely needed it. Even the governor needed it. She'd come and sit in my room sometimes and talk to me about her stress and, you know, the lack of faith she had in the world and everything. So when I came out, I had lost some faith. In fact, I lost a lot of faith in ISKCON, in the leaders. And I was very upset because I needed a place to practice with like-minded souls. And I needed somebody like Prabhupada with me. And I remember crying like I'd never cried before. Not even when I got sent to prison. It was when I came out. I cried and prayed like I'd never prayed before. That Srila Prabhupada, you will have to send me someone like you to help me to carry on. I have no way to carry on at the moment like this. And a few days later, I was walking in Radlett High Street and I met Vrindavan Vilasini and I met Jadharani, you know, who's now Shamarani. And there was a very holy sadhu with them travelling. I didn't see him in Radlett, but I invited him to my home. And my home was in Bushi, not the home that most of the devotees came. And I didn't know what to expect. And when he came, and I opened the door, and it was Narayan Maharaj, and he was glowing from top to bottom. There was just like my Srila Prabhupada, and he was so humble and so kind, and I'd made a nice chair for him to sit on. I can't tell you what he lectured on because my emotions were all over the place. I felt an immediate relief that Srila Prabhupada had sent him. That was no ordinary happening. That within 4 days of praying to Srila Prabhupada like that, I had a sadhu in my home, the greatest sadhu I'd seen since Srila Prabhupada. And I'd made a chocolate cake. I'd made a chocolate cake. And first of all, I offered some water. He was sitting on the Vyasasan, and I offered some cold water straight out the fridge. Icy cold water. It was a hot summer's day, and I thought, and he said, he held the water, he didn't put it to his mouth, and then he said, oh, this is very bad for the stomach. It must be room temperature. So I bought the bottle that was stored, and he had that room temperature, otherwise you can make your digestion very ill. And then I was afraid to offer the cake. I was thinking, oh, I've made it with real carob, I've made it with chocolate. And he accepted it, and he had quite a big piece, and he said it was delicious. And he said, and then he said, he must have known what was going through my mind, because I was thinking, well, the devotees said I couldn't offer chocolate. And he said, chocolate in its natural form can be offered. Yeah, Gurudev said that, because I was in my mind thinking, I've offered him chocolate, can I offer chocolate? And he said chocolate in its real form is okay. He said, but devotees, of course, have to control their senses, but to offer in its pure form is okay. And immediately there was a great peace in my heart that he was working with me, because he'd read that in my heart. Just like I felt that Srila Prabhupada could also read my mind. I was going back to the time when Srila Prabhupada, the devotees had taken all the money away from the deities, and I was it hurt me so much. And then when Srila Prabhupada came, and I'd had a lot of run-ins with Hamsadutta and some of the older devotees, and then Srila Prabhupada had said to me at the time that most people in this world have lives like this, like waves, how they're common. He said, but in your case, it's like a tsunami. So I remembered when Gurudev was there, I felt that he understood me. He understood that my life is like a tsunami, and that the little thing, even about the chocolate, he wanted to give me peace. And I felt that Srila Prabhupada had totally sent him to help me to give me peace, and how I could go forward with what I'd already just been through. Oh, I'm so sorry that this was a long-winded story on how I came to Gurudev, but it was profoundly through Srila Prabhupada's love for me and my love for him that he brought me to such a great sadhu. And from the first time of meeting Gurudev, I knew that he would be able to really help me in my Krishna consciousness, and also so that I could sustain my service and my love and increase it for Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.